Oh boy. Okay, I'm reading the comments on this video before I even get into it. It only has like 300 views. The channel has 1,000 subs, but black culture is in fact destructive. And if we look at the comments, no matter what people say, facts are not racist. That's true. Facts aren't racist, but facts can be distorted or used for a particular racist like narrative. So okay, this basically says nothing. As a black woman, clap, 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 they won't even listen to their own people telling them they're backwards. Gang culture is spreading around. There's a lot of it nowadays. Sadly, most kids who fall it think they'll all make it big like rappers did. This video will not upset anyone, and I've not even played it yet. I'm basing this comment fully on the name of the video alone. That's sarcasm. All right, let's see. I don't know what this guy's deal is. Let's go ahead and see.
I've noticed since what with all the crazy shit going on in the USA and Europe, there's all sorts of Europeans trying to pretend BLM riots aren't happening. You're lying.
This guy kind of reminds me of Styx, Hex, and Hammer. Is this guy like a guy who claims he's a libertarian but is actually like a Nazi or something? I don't know. So nobody's saying BLM riots aren't happening. He isn't even black. Hey, maybe he voted for Biden. We don't know. So for one, nobody is saying that like BLM riots aren't happening. The question is, to what degree are they happening, and what ratio of violent protests are happening compared to peaceful ones? As we know, the data is there. 97% of BLM protests are peaceful, and the majority of the 3% of protests that aren't peaceful are usually instigated by the police or outside agitators who end up making it violent. There's not really like the problem happening here, and the way that you solve these BLM protests is by acquiescing to their demands, because they're not going to stop protesting. They're protesting against the murder of black people by the police and the mistreatment thereof, and the injustice in our court system, of our prison system, all these things. These are problems that we need to fix. The way that we stop these riots and these protests is by fixing the problems that they're rioting against. Adopt the policy that they're advocating for. Mandatory shoulder cams, harder sentencing for police that abuse their power and engage in police brutality. Things like the person who shot Breonna Taylor getting off and only getting in trouble for the property damage that he did to the neighbor and the potential that he put the neighbors in danger. Shit like that needs to stop. Shit like the terrible fucking recidivism we have when it comes to our prison system. Our prison system is just broken to the core. The for-profit prison system is broken to the fucking core. We do not have a rehabilitative prison system. The way our prisons work literally incentivizes more crime. Most people come out of prison being a bigger criminal than they went in. If we had a prison system that was conducive with like being rehabilitated and coming out, being able to start your life back up again and not turn to crime, that would fix many of the problems that we have. But unfortunately, yep, that's true. America's 4% of the world's population has 25% of the world's prisoners. It's a big problem. We need to fix these problems. If we fix these problems, then the riots are going to stop.
I've noticed people finding the older content I made a couple years ago about the black community at large, the problems I had with the current state of it, and how they could possibly improve. And funny thing about that is I've seen...
I'm sorry for being like a big time pause Andy here, but I have to talk about this, okay? The black community and black culture comes from the position that black people in this country are in. That's where culture comes from. Why is the voice echoing? I have no idea why the voice is echoing. I can't help you. The reason why black culture is the way it is because their material condition in this country. When you have a culture of people, or a group of people, I should say, that were brought into this country as slaves against their will, who even after slavery wasn't the thing anymore, were discriminated against on the basis of their race for a century, and were seen as literally lesser than white people and of other like races and whatnot, and then even to this day are treated disproportionately by the police, by government, by everything. And then even beyond that, because of the ills of the past that have been done on them, are kneecapped the starting line in this country. Of course, you're going to have a culture that's not going to be I guess you could say conducive to success, although I'd argue it is because, I mean, fuck, there's a lot of black people that are pretty successful based on making music and art critiquing the socio-political position that black people are in this country. I think the voice is echoing because it's playing through your mic when it picks up on your computer speakers, if any sound's coming out of them. Let me see.
Seen both black people and white
It's my sound card.
people vehemently agree and disagree with the points I made. So what about now? You know, I think I'm slightly better at talking on this channel. I'm slightly more in tune with the news and shit and following politics, and I'm a little bit better at speaking. So what do I think of those videos I made in like 2016, 2017 about the black crisis in America? My views have not changed at all. They're some of the best videos I've ever made during a time period where not every video I made was hardly any good. Back when I would just upload any little thing, even though if it was overly long, repetitive garbage. And I still make overly long, repetitive garbage occasionally.
Speaking of that, I'm going to go ahead and turn up the speed on this. You'll notice I muted myself whenever he's talking, so you guys don't hear the echo. Let's go ahead and speed this up to 1.5 speed.
The reason why I want to make this video is because I read like this kind of semi-famous Reddit post that's probably from a few years ago itself. And I found it really interesting because it was about supposedly a teacher in an inner city school and was alarmed at how unruly and crazy and like violent the kids were, that this teacher couldn't teach them anything. And when the teacher tried to go to upper staff and like the what do you call it, the principal and the fucking superintendent say like, what do I do? You say, oh, well, you can't do anything. It's just their culture. The funny thing is a lot of people in the comments to another post I've seen of this Reddit post, it's not the original one because I've never been to Reddit, fuck that place, but occasionally people say interesting shit on there, occasionally. And all these people were saying one thing that really surprised me. They didn't really accuse this teacher of lying. A couple of people thought that the teacher's post was a like a faker, which is possible. However, the situation that poster described occurs in a lot of inner city schools in America that are predominantly overwhelmingly black. And these schools, by the way, do have institutional racism because almost any and every white person that I've ever met or heard about on any social media post that talks about being one of the 4 or 5 white kids in one of these schools, they didn't get called cracker and have their hair made fun of, and it broke their heart because systemic racism is still alive in this country. They got mercilessly bullied and got the shit kicked out of them and got robbed constantly. And the teachers wouldn't do shit.
Is he saying that systemic racism does exist, or is he... I don't understand what he's saying here. Here, so for starters, maybe we'll get a base take. I have no idea. We'll see, okay? I don't really... He's not too good at articulating his argument here. Okay, let's talk about some things really quick. Let's talk about the inner city and, like, black people or black kids in school here, okay? So... you going to watch the Game Awards? I'll probably be streaming during the Game Awards, so no. And also, we're not getting any Hightail news, so why would I? Okay. So, unfortunately, in this country, for the most part, schools are funded by property tax. This essentially means that the quality of the housing in the zone which the school exists in, it is paid for by the taxes of that zone. So if you live in a really shitty neighborhood where the property value is very low, the property taxes are going to be very low, so that school's funding is going to be pretty badly. So this essentially means that if you are in a really bad neighborhood and you are zoned for a really bad school in that neighborhood, that school's going to be very badly funded, which means you're not going to have the particularly best teachers. You're not really going to have the best textbooks, computers, curriculum, all these things. The infrastructure of the school is going to be pretty bad. And, you know, coming from a pretty poor area, most of the people there aren't really going to be interested in learning all that much because what the fuck, how's that going to help them? They were born poor. Their parents were probably born poor. Their grandparents were born poor. And not only that, but were probably, you know, literally discriminated against based on their skin color. They couldn't use the same water fountain as white people when they were kids. And going back even further, it gets worse and worse and worse all the way to the point of slavery. Their entire and then of course redlining and whatnot, which still happens, but it's just not in the law. They're like generations going back. Their entire fucking family history consists of poverty. why should they think they're going to be the ones that are going to break the cycle when they go to a shitty school that's funded terribly because of property tax? Now, a lot of conservatives will say that, or conservatives will say the solution to this is school vouchers, right? Giving these students permission to go to a different school outside of their zone, which is, better than them going to the shitty school, but just doesn't solve the problem. And the reason it doesn't solve the problem is because, well, for a variety of reasons. For one, the shitty schools still exist. They aren't getting funded what they need to get funded. Going on even further, sometimes it's just not possible for those kids to go to that school. Let's say the next school over, the school they get a voucher for is an extra 20 to 30 minutes away. Do you expect the mother or father, possibly even single parent of a poor family, to be able to bring their kid to that school and still be able to go to work? Of course not. It's just not practical. Sometimes it is, but the majority of the time it's not. It just doesn't fix the problem. The way we have to fix this problem is by funding these schools better. The reason why you see so many students, usually black students in these schools, that are so fucking not interested in learning and are, rowdy or whatever, is because why should they give a shit about breaking the cycle of poverty that's gone on for generations? When the tools they have at their disposal are a fraction of that most wealthy, affluent white students have, that are in better neighborhoods with better funding. Why should they? Reasonably speaking, it's not their fault. At the end of the day, it's basic human psychology. The way we fix this is by funding these schools better. That's how we fix it.
That's what I heard every fucking time. I don't know if it was impossible for any of these kids to ever learn a damn thing in class like this Reddit post described, because it was pretty ridiculous. It made it just sound like mayhem in every classroom. But we've all seen the World Star videos of a bunch of kids just stopping everything in the middle of class, getting in a fight. There's that one famous one where these two black dudes are fighting like absolute crazy, and the teacher tries to break it up, and it's just this little white teacher, I think. Or it might have been a black teacher, I don't remember. The point is the teacher's this little woman. And one of the guys swinging, I don't even think he necessarily did it on purpose, just fucking haymakers across the face, her right across the face, because she got in the middle of it. And another one of the black teens just sucker punched the shit out of the kid. Said, "You don't do that. You don't hit the teacher, man. That's a woman, man." And the thing is, half of you seeing this wants to cheer this kid for having some chivalric values. The other half of you can't help but notice just sucker punching a guy in a conflict you're not involved in. And you got to wonder, some people brought up oh yeah, well, fatherlessness is the reason why if these schools are actually shit like this. Well, it's fatherlessness. But the number one thing that all these Redditors and YouTube commenters would respond to this and say, that's ridiculous. That kind of behavior is not our culture. I'm a black person, and that kind of chaotic and violent and disruptive behavior is not our culture. Yes, it is.
Oh boy. Yeah, so no, it's not. What is black culture, okay? What even is black culture? So for one, all right, there is no black culture, okay? Black culture in the UK is very different from black culture in America. Black culture on the East Coast is very different from black culture on the West Coast. But violence is not part of any culture. Violence is not part of black culture either. The reason why black people or black kids, I guess, in these inner city schools that are very poorly funded behave this way isn't because of their culture. It's because how they're raised. When you're raised poor, this is how you act. I guarantee any fucking poorly funded white redneck white trash school, the kids behave the exact same way. In fact, I know they act the exact same way because I went to a school like this when I lived in Lakeland. I lived in a pretty decent neighborhood, but the school that I went to was a poorly funded redneck ass trailer park kind of neighborhood that was funding the school that I went to, and these fucking white kids got into fights every single fucking day. In class, sometimes, usually outside the lunchroom. We actually had a system here. Here, I can actually show you guys a paint stream. Paint stream. Here's how we're gonna do it. I'm gonna do a paint stream for this one. Let's put a little bit of something on my, a little bit of cum on my drawing board here, so I gotta scrape it off. But here, I'll demonstrate how we did this, okay? I'll draw a line. Fuck it. Never mind. No paint stream. I'm too mad right now. I just woke up. My coordination isn't good enough to even draw anyway with the drawing pad. I'll just describe it, okay? So we had the lunchroom at our school, and the lunchroom had like these doors that opened straight out to the basketball court. Where like it was part of like the outside area, right? And this was the basketball court you had to walk on to get to the classes, like the main building where the classes were. So what we would do was basically every day we walked from the lunchroom across the basketball court and to the classes, and there was always two white kids fighting on the basketball court. Sometimes it was the same kids, sometimes it was different kids, but there was always a fight. There was always white kids fucking fighting each other. And they all came from shitty families, poor generally, always pretty poor, and it was pretty bad, right? This had nothing to do with the fact that they were white. This had nothing to do with the fact they were black. This had nothing to do with white culture or black culture. It had everything to do with being poor and coming from a family that just didn't have a lot of money. And typically when you're poor, generally, you're probably not taught the best manners. It's not always the case, but manners aren't usually really good. And sometimes when you're raised like that in a poor area, strength is very much rewarded. If you're poor and you live in a poor neighborhood and the people that you hang out with are poor, people in your family are poor, strength is rewarded. Part of this has to do with class struggle. Yes, part of this has to do with the antagonism that poor people have for other poor people due to lack of resources. This is usually a result of capitalism. That's so racist to say, Xander. Suck my cock. But yeah, with that said, this has nothing to do with black culture. Black culture doesn't... What rap music even... What black culture, what rap music, like rap music is like the best example of black culture that comes to mind, right? What rap music incentivizes kids fighting at school and like punching their teacher? Most rap music is about getting rich, being good at rap, and smoking weed. And everybody loves weed. I don't, but everybody, like white people and black people, smoke weed at the same like most rap, unironically, is literally about being poor, not having anything, and then working your way up to being wealthy and successful. That's like what a lot of it's about. Do you guys listen to rap? Hypers right now, if you listen to rap, you should all know this. Most popular rap nowadays, there's like the gangster rap, and that's like an offshoot of it. And sometimes that's a thing. Like there's some violence that's glorified occasionally. But for the most part, at least nowadays, definitely, rap is, yeah, like you said in I Am McDonald, most rap is about like rags to riches stories, right? Like started from the bottom, now I'm here. Sex is also a big one, right? But sex is pog, unless you want to ban it like I do, in which case, sex, rags to riches, stuff like that. That's most of what rap is about. And rap is probably the best example of black culture in America there is. This is inarguable. The reason why in inner city schools you see like black kids fighting a lot is because they're poor, and poverty incentivizes demonstrating how strong you are. And that's usually why you see a lot of fighting. That's it. That's the main reason.
I'm going to say that one more time. No caveats, no exaggeration, no hyperbole, no poetic language, no metaphor. That kind of violent and disruptive and crazy and disrespectful behavior is not our culture. Yes, it is. Let me clarify. I've met a lot of people in my lifetime who are pretty racist. And some that were kind of a little bit racist. And, a few years ago when I was still thinking of myself as a progressive, I thought, you know what, when you see one of these progressives who say everyone's a little bit racist, you almost want to get mad at them a little bit, more so than the people who say, oh, only white people get racist, because at least the people who blame everything on white people, you know what they're all about. They're racists. But I used to recoil and think, well, I'm not racist, and the reason why I say I'm not racist is because I give every individual person of every single race, creed, and color a chance when I meet them. I allow every individual I meet to be a blank slate, and I don't automatically assume anything in particular about somebody. I might think something right away, maybe that's the implicit bias, but it doesn't actually color my behavior because I'm not the kind of person who thinks I know.
That's what people mean when people say everybody's a little bit racist. That's what it is. When you see a black person on the street and you think, oh yeah, they must be a gangster, or if you see like a Asian person and you think, oh, they're gonna have an Asian accent, and that's like the first thing that comes to mind, or you immediately think that before you talk to them. That's what they're talking about. These implicit biases are what they mean when they say everyone's a little racist. Everyone has their own like taught societal biases. They're kind of implicit. They may not be conscious. They may be subconscious or whatever. But that's what they mean when they say that.
Know a person on sight just because you're a member of a race that is well known for violence and criminality and fatherlessness and drug abuse and glorification of promiscuity. And
so promiscuity isn't violent. Drugs don't have to be violent. Everybody, like, it's literally been definitively proven that black people and white people smoke weed at the same amount. White people tend to be on harder drugs like meth and whatnot. That's a white people drug. Crack cocaine is only popular among black people because it was kind of distributed by the American government back in like, what was it, the 60s, I believe, and it was like an active like effort to push it. And also, crack cocaine's also is also very, very popular with poor white people as well. I don't know if you've noticed this, but ton of poor white people also smoke crack. It's a poor people drug. It's just most black people in America are poor, and that's why we associate it like that. Most like rap music and most like what's like black music, I guess you would say, like most depictions of black culture, mostly glorify rags to riches stories, money, and sex. That's what most of it is about. Crack, the proletariat's cocaine, true.
how many other things can I bring up? All these stereotypes. Just because you might be a member of that race does not mean you are like that. But some people would say, just being aware of not just the stereotypes, but the statistical fact of drastic overrepresentation in a racial group's behavior. Asians make way the fuck more money than the rest of us. Asians and Indians, at least in America. They make way more money than we do. White people.
So here's the problem. Here is why, and I think we probably heard enough from this video, but I think we've gotten the main arguments because I don't care about hearing this guy's... Because what this guy's going to do, and what he's already done a little bit already, is he's going to list a bunch of statistics and facts and then use those to try to prove like a racist point or try to suggest a racist argument, right? I'm going to do the exact opposite, all right? Why are Asian people and Indian people in this country more successful than even white people? In fact, why are black people who immigrated here from Africa generally more successful than white people? Well, the reason is, if you immigrated from another country, from like Asia or whatever, you probably came here for money opportunities. You probably came here for schooling or for a job that pays better. And even then, you probably had the money at your disposal already to pay to immigrate to this country. They came here with a lot of money in the first place. And so those that are born to that family are also going to be raised in a household that has a lot of money. That's why that's the case. Black people that were born here in America, on the other hand, for the most part, their parents didn't immigrate here because they had a lot of money for the most part. They came here because their ancestors were enslaved and brought here against their will. Then, were slaves, and then were segregated and redlined into oblivion, and then to this day are now the victim of our for-profit prison system and our terrible fucking policing. So yeah, that's basically how it works. So the problem is, these facts are true. Most black people in this country are poor. Asians and whatnot and Indian people in this country are generally a bit more wealthy and make more money. Now, a racist would take these facts and then extrapolate from that Asian people have a higher IQ and are more genetically smarter than white people and black people and so on. They would say that white people are superior to black people in terms of intelligence because of this, when that's not the case. It's all because of socioeconomic factors. Race realists have been trying to prove that black people are inferior to white people for centuries, and modern race realists have been trying to do it for fucking decades, trying to claim it's all genetics, when it's really not. No, science has not demonstrated this because of genetics. At every turn, it has been demonstrated that it's because of socioeconomic factors. And the way that we fix these problems is through fixing the socioeconomic position that black people in this country are in. We fund the schools. We try to, there's many ways we can do it. We overhaul our prison system. This would be a big one. Overhauling our prison system so it's rehabilitative rather than retributive and for profit would be a big one. Having people that go into prison criminals come out no longer being criminals, or at the very least being less of a criminal than they went in, which is not the case now, would be big. This would result in also job opportunities for those coming out of prison. Having strong, solid, well-paying job opportunities for those coming out of prison would be a big one. That's really big. How many fucking black families in this country do you think there are where the father was arrested, goes into prison, gets involved in a gang in prison to survive, which you basically have to do. You have to do crime in prison to survive for the most part. It is very rare that someone can go to prison, keep their nose completely clean, and survive it if they're in there for any serious time. It's really fucking hard because of the way our prison works, our prison system in America works. It's really, really hard. Having strong job opportunities for those that come out of prison, and being able to like support their family when they get out is important as fuck. Having good, well-funded schools, no matter where you live, is big. Having access to daycare daycare is a fucking big one. Daycare for poor families is really, really important. That's huge. The schooling in daycare and overhauling the prison system is massive. Overhauling how our police in this country operate so that they can't get away with doing things like shooting innocent, unarmed black people is really, really important. Prioritizing our funding on segments of our police that can focus on things like disputes within the home, nonviolent resolution of conflict. These are really, really important if we want to go about fixing the socioeconomic position that black people are in this country. And if you're one of those people that believes that black culture is toxic or bad, whatever, you fix black people's socioeconomic position in this country, and that will fix their culture, as you say. Yeah, more maternity leave, that's a good one too. Just general social safety nets for poor people in this country. That's how we fix it. That's how we go about fixing these problems. It's been demonstrated by every criminologist and sociologist under the fucking sun. There is no debate about this. That's how we fix these problems. It's not a genetic thing. It just isn't. That's what I have to say. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, ring that bell icon. I'd really appreciate it, so you actually get notified whenever I go live or upload a video. Also, join my Discord and follow me on Twitter through the link down in the description. It's a really good community. I tweet some spicy stuff on Twitter. It's a good time. On top of that, if you have any money sitting around you don't need for anything else and you want to support me, you can always join and become a member on the channel. You just hit the join button. It's a really good thing. You can also sub to me on Patreon or come to my website, xanderhall.com/live, and donate, sub, or gift a sub here. It's a good time. And yeah, I thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.